Welcome back to another episode of Life with Lamb. Today I'm here with Ella, or the Breath Boss.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm so happy we're here.
I know, it's been a very long time in the making. I say that with a lot of guests, but I feel like this one's been...
It's been like at least a year.
I reckon. Was that when we met?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's been maybe just under a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are.
Here we are. Well, we're here now.
Divine timing.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to ask the Breath Boss. That's such a sick name. Where did that come from?
So the Breath Boss came from during lockdown. I joined a community run group, and they all called themselves different bosses. And I used to do lashes. So I used to be a beauty therapist. Well, I still do lashes every now and again, but I used to be a beauty therapist, and they named me the Lash Boss when I first started, and that was fine and that was great because I was the Lash Boss. And then during 2020, I stepped into understanding I just did my first breathwork session, and I started to become obsessed with it, and everyone called me Ella Hoff because I just didn't shut up about the Wim Hof method. And then they actually did an introduction post into their community, and they called me the Lash Boss, and I was like, I'm not the Lash Boss, I'm the Breath Boss now. And then I was like, oh, hold on, I like that, the Breath Boss. And then no one had the Breath Boss URL, no one had the Breath Boss Insta handle, and I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to be the Breath Boss and see how it goes. And I started calling myself the Breath Boss long before I called myself the Breath Boss externally, because I was like, oh, who the fuck do you think you are? Call yourself the boss of breath. And then everyone was like, just step into it, just do it. And then I just one day changed my Insta handle, and I was like, here I go, I'm the Breath Boss. And then it's just so many people come up to me and they're like, if you had any other name, I wouldn't have remembered who you are. And I'm like, thank you.
Exactly. It's such a it's a unique name, and everyone's going to obviously remember it after this episode. Exactly. The Breath Boss. How cool is that?
Yeah, it was
I think that's so awesome.
So it was just a community group that named everyone certain bosses, and now I just decided I was the Breath Boss.
Yeah, that's
and it.
Just
stuck.
Well, you're empowering a lot of people across Melbourne so far, hopefully across Australia soon, maybe. The rate you're going, to be honest.
Well, I actually I'm about to do my second interstate workshop. So I did one in June in the Gold Coast last year, and then I'm doing one in Sydney next weekend. And yeah, I guess
taking
I am empowering
over.
Do you know my I don't want to say catchphrase, but I empower people to confront vulnerability, to love themselves authentically. That's what I do. So I'm very excited that you say that I'm empowering people, because that's literally what what I want to do with my life.
I actually love that so much, and I'm so glad we're finally here and able to chat about what you do. What exactly is it? What do you do?
I do that. I get people to lean into their vulnerable side, and I guess lean into the magic of breathing. And wow, what do I do? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a huge question, I think, and there's so much pressure surrounding it, I think.
Well, I'm a breathwork coach. I'm a breath facilitator. So I've done a few trainings I've done a spiritual side training where we learned about chakras and energy blocks, and about the breakthrough breathwork sessions that I facilitate that I first had my profound experience with at the start. So I take people through breakthrough breathwork sessions, and then I kind of started dabbling in the Wim Hof method by myself. And then I also have become trained in Oxygen Advantage, which is more functional breathing, and breathing in line with your metabolic needs, and breathing in line with just breathing functionality, rather than, this morning everyone with the upper chest breathing, teaching them to breathe into their belly, and teaching them the difference between nose and mouth breathing. So I guess I do a lot of things, but it all comes back to the breath.
Yeah, I love that so much. We had a breath session this morning. Thank you very much for your time again. It was awesome, and I think a lot of the team really enjoyed it, which is really exciting. There is a stigma surrounding breath, and particularly, I don't know, your mindfulness and yoga and all those sorts of things. Were you like that from the start? Because I feel like breath is a very niche sort of area to specialize in, and it's not something, you're typically you're a lawyer, you're dentist, you're doctors, or a business owner now these days. Why breath, and what got you into it?
So I actually thought it was a joke. I was one of those people who was like, yeah, okay, cool, breathing, whatever. And I actually laughed at it. And I had tried different, I'd gone to yoga classes, because everyone in my life was always like, slow the fuck down, Ella. And I was always like, no, you don't understand. I go really fast. I'm happy. And so I would go to all these yoga sessions, and the breath element at the start and the breath element at the end would just trigger me, and I would be like, why am I here doing this? And then I I used to be just like a hot mess, which we'll like circle back to in a hot minute. But like I found myself going back to those hot mess behaviors that I'd kind of thought I'd gotten over a couple of years ago. And then my friend was like, look, try breathwork. And I was like, Maddie, you've been my best friend my whole life. Shut up about breathwork. And she's like, and she wouldn't let me call her and complain about my life until I'd tried breathwork. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to do it once and then I can say I've done it and then I can go back to talking to my best friend about how shit my life is. And so I signed up she was asking me to do the Wim Hof method, and I'm glad I didn't have that as my first experience, because the Wim Hof method is beautiful, but it's like absolutely magical. But for me, sometimes I don't always drop in and I don't always have that moment where I'm like, what is going on? So my first breathwork session was a breakthrough breathwork session. So it was like the most extreme that I'd ever done or know of, I guess. And I just signed up to this Zoom and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to try it and see what happens, and then she can shut up. And I rolled my eyes and I laughed at everything the facilitator was saying. And I was like, babe, this is breathing. Like, get a grip of yourself. Like, you sound like a nut job. And now it's like the stuff I just say at the start of everything. I say it back to front, like exactly what she said. And I laid down and I just said to myself, surrender. And I was like, it's an hour and a half. I was like, give yourself this hour and a half to just do this, and then you can say you've done it and you never have to do it again. And we started breathing, and I was like thinking about food and thinking about like other things. And then all of a sudden I was like, why am I going back to when I was 7 years old? Like, why am I going back to that moment? Why am I thinking about this? And then the tears came, and then the laughter came, and then the laughing at how much I was crying came. And then I was just like going through the ringer on my bed on this Zoom being like, what is this? And then there was actually this scream at the end of it, which at the start when she said, like, at the end, you're going to grab a pillow and you're going to scream into a pillow. And I was like, no, I'm not, babe. Like, you're on Zoom. You can't force me to do anything. This is a group thing. Like, you're not going to see if I don't. And she was like, she said, we're going to end with this scream. And because I'd had all these like things happen with the breathing the whole way through, I was like, fuck it, I'll do the scream. Like, you've got me. Like, I'm here. And I did the scream, and that was still to this day the most profound thing that had ever happened to me, the place that my body took me to when I finally just screamed for the first time in my life. Like, after not being silenced, but like my whole life, everyone was like, I didn't really use my voice. I really struggled to use my voice. And then I did this scream into this pillow after whatever the fuck that was. And I came out of that and I was like, okay, breathing. All right, what's going on here?
We're onto something here.
Yeah, I was like, there's something more to this. And then that night I just felt like I cried and I laughed, but then I wasn't sad when we finished. I was like so inspired and so ready and so grateful and so just like, oh my gosh, what the fuck is breathing about? And then the next day I did the Wim Hof method again, but this time I did it knowing the places that I could take myself to with breathing. So I like leaned into it a little bit more. And then, I mean, here I am now telling you that everyone needs to do more breath work.
Oh my gosh.
I then had an ice bath the next day too. And like, there was a version of me that was 2 days before that would have never gotten into an ice bath or done a breathwork session. And then all within like a one weekend, I was like, okay, here we go. Superhuman things.
Yeah. So you've done like a complete 180.
Oh, more. I've done like a four 360s.
Like 4 360.
Like,
yeah.
I don't even know what I've done.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, what was life like leading up to that? What were you like as a kid, and what were the passages like leading up into breathwork?
So I had like, before I say anything, I had the most, now in reflection that I've come through everything, I'm so grateful, and I had a beautiful life and I had all of the things. But like my parents, standard, they broke up when I was 3 or 4 maybe, and they were very stuck in what was going on for them. So it was very like, you know, go to mum's house, tell dad this, go to dad's house, tell mum this. Like, it was very like I was the messenger, and then everything was being unloaded to me and my sister. And so it was like I had the most like I grew up in Byron. I like lived 200 meters from the beach. Like I was a really lucky kid, but there was some trauma, you know, and I got stuck in my trauma. And I dropped out of school when I was 17, moved out of home when I was 17, traveled around, kind of just like got distracted. I was distracted from like 17 till I moved to Melbourne. And when I moved to Melbourne and I was away from, I had to like start a life, right? So I had moved out of home when I was 17 and then traveled until I was 21, got really sick in London when I was 20. Pretty much got pronounced, like my family all flew over to London because I was in a coma, and they thought they were coming over to say goodbye to me because I'd gotten encephalitis, which is like a strain of meningitis, and I had an uncontrollable amount of seizures. So they put me into a coma, and then they didn't know how I was going to wake up. So long story short, whole family came over to London because they thought I was gone. Woke up kicking and screaming, of course, and then came back to Australia. So I was supposed to live in London, came back to Australia, recovered for a year, living with my family again, like moving back into home for the first time since I was 17. And then I moved to Melbourne when I was 22. And, you know, it was time to grow up. I was 22. I was so grown up then, lol, in reflection. And
But that's the narrative today.
Yeah.
I think you have to be, like, suddenly be grown up when you're 22 or like 21 now. Like, I'm experiencing that. It's like, oh, what do you want to do for a living? What's your career looking like? Like, oh my Lord, it is terrifying.
I've been reborn like literally 10 times since I was 20. Like I've been 10 different people in the last 7 years. And I still know that there's so many. I know that 30 is going to be my best year. Like I reckon 30 is when I'll be like, I'm an adult now, guys. Actually an adult now. Because I'm still not there.
Well, what inspired the move from 17? Like dropping out of school, I can imagine a lot of people maybe looking down on you maybe for like...
Oh yeah, I got like mum and dad were like, bye then, if you're not going to do it. Like, so I just moved out. They weren't like bye then, but they weren't very supportive of me moving out. But I wasn't a learner. Like I didn't want to learn any of that stuff. Like I am so inspired to learn now, but in a totally different way. But like, yeah, I didn't want to learn any of.
And I think you grow up going to school and being part of this curriculum that everyone's supposed to adhere to, but it's just not the case. There's people that learned in different ways and have interests in different things, and that's what I'm starting to learn as well. And it's like it's really unfair to push these kids through this. Oh God, like through primary school all the way to high school, and then expect to graduate, go to uni, and do the exact same thing for like I don't know this 20-year period in your life.
Yeah,
it's just like. How do you cope with that? You
have to have life experience to know what you want to do. Like, I always thought I wanted to be a psychologist because my dad was a psychologist. One of my older sisters was a psychologist. So I was like, in my head, I was like, psychology. And then I went into beauty therapy when I moved back to Australia. And then so like now it's like I was the therapist in beauty therapy, right? Because everyone comes and unloads all their shit on you. I wanted to be a psychologist. And now it's like I've got the holding space for people and like helping them unpack it. But I'm not unpacking it with them. They're unpacking it in their own heads with breathwork. But then it's like the therapy side. So it's like all of the things that I thought I wanted to do, I've now like turned into my just total own thing, you know? Like I wanted to be a psychologist and I wanted to do beauty. And now it's like I've mixed the two. And not that beauty, but it's like making people feel good. And it's like holding space, for, you know, like you're doing someone's eyelashes for 2 hours. They tell you their whole life story and you go back and you tell them so it's like the same kind of like space holding, make you feel comfortable. But now it's like the psych and the therapy into breathwork.
Yeah, and I think as a kid you grow up and you pursue this like one passion or career that you think is going to be awesome, but like you said, you need life experience as well. So maybe you want to be a doctor, but you also want to have a genuine connection with your patients. You can't have that as well, and you don't know that. You just grow up and say, I want to be a doctor, and then you start discovering like who you actually are as a person and what you stand for, what your values are, what you would prefer to do for work. And it's just like, what does your, let's say 16, because I think that's when the conversations start coming. It's like, what does your 16-year-old self know about yourself? Like,
what
you don't know exactly.
I learn new things about myself every day. And I'm like, I wouldn't have had a single clue if someone told me. Like, if I finished school and had to go to university, I don't know what the hell I would have done. Like, I don't know. I'm so happy that I dropped out. And I'm so happy that, like, I didn't have, you know, I didn't do it everything the normal way because now I've undone it all of the other ways. But it's like, I'm so happy with what I do.
Exactly.
And I figured it out. And now, like, because of all of the experiences that I had by fucking around for all those years, it's made me the exact person that you want to come to and be like, hi, let's do this, you know? Because it's like, I've done it all.
And
not all of it.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're so privileged in Australia that we can afford to do that. We can afford to just slow down. And I don't understand what this whole rush is to get into, I don't know, a big corporate job or into a 9-to-5 job and just be there for for a stagnant amount of time.
Well, it's like do you know so many people, I've actually like the most, the stereotype of the person who reaches out to me the most and who is kind of like the most called to doing this is the person who has finished school, done everything structured, done everything the way that their parents wanted them to, done everything in the way that it's like finished school, got the degree, got the car, got the house, got the savings, got the, like, you know, and then all of a sudden they've got everything that they had on their mood board, but they're like there and they're like, hold on, I hate my life and I hate myself and I'm not happy at all And I thought I would be happy once I'd come to this part and I'd like, you know, I've ticked everything off. Like you have the house, you have the money, you have the family, you have the car, you have all of these things, but it's like, what just makes your soul happy? You've literally just been chasing what you think you needed to chase because you've been brought up being told that, you know, put a mood board up, get everything on your mood board and then you're going to be happy. No, that's not how it works. Like that's not it. And that's literally the most common person that comes to me is not the most common, there's a lot of different people, but the general story of people who kind of book in for like a breakthrough breathwork session, it's more often than not, it's like that person who has ticked all the boxes but has extreme anxiety, doesn't sleep, is on antidepressants, is going to the doctor because their antidepressants are being upped. You know, they don't feel safe in their body. They send it every weekend because that's what their friends do. You know what I mean? Like it's these people who have done it all the way that we're supposed to do it and then have gotten to the other side and they're like, oh, this is not it. Like, why aren't I smiling?
Yeah, that phrasing is powerful, I think, like how we're supposed to do it. And I just think, is there one way to do it?
Exactly.
Like we're not supposed to do like anything really. Obviously finding your passions and everything. I think that's what we're supposed to do, not
like,
follow the
wrong.
checklist.
Some people are really privileged in the sense that they do follow the structure of what life should be and they do find they're happy and they can put their hand on their heart and say, I can sleep tonight, like knowing that I've done, you know, like I'm in this, I'm exactly where I want to be, right? But I don't feel like that's very true for many people.
It's interesting that a lot of the demographic that comes through to you, it fits in that crowd.
Yeah, massively.
What are some of the turnovers that you've seen in terms of like the breathwork and those sorts of things?
What do you mean?
How has it affected them or impacted them after?
Well, I mean, so many different ways. Some people come and they just come one time and they're like, wow, that was profound. Like it was really uncomfortable for a second. I had like a beautiful moment. I realized what I needed and, you know, found the clarity. But then other people are like, do you know how many people have become breathwork facilitators since they've done a one-on-one? Like they've come to me as like a hairdresser or like whatever else, and then they've done this session and they've been like, hold on, what? And they've had like the same moment as me and then they've become breath coaches. Like they're literally they're like in the process now, or like some of them have already done it and they're starting their own little like communities and side hustles of like becoming breath coaches. But I guess showing people what breathing can do, it just empowers them. Like it just takes them to a place where they believe in themselves. It's just bringing them back to themselves and bringing them home to themselves. And, you know, whether it's doing like a functional breathing thing that's, you know, showing them how to feel safe in their body or showing them how to use their nose to breathe rather than their mouth and what that difference that makes to their body, or, you know, like the chest and belly difference in like whether it's showing them that side of it that just makes them feel safer in their body or like more delicious, right? Or then there's also the element of the breakthrough breathwork sessions where people come and they book it in and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be relaxing or this or that or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not going to be relaxing. It's going to be a little bit intense, but it's going to be beautiful. And then they go back to moments that they didn't realize they had to kind of like feel, because as a society, we're so, like I said before I did the session this morning, we just suppress everything. You know, we just like, you have anxiety and you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, what can you do for my anxiety? Instead of like learning about the fact that if you have a cold shower every day, it's going to pump your body filled with almost the same chemicals that you're putting your body into your body every single day. But it's like, that's an easier fix, you know? So like I don't know how to explain what I'm even trying to say, but basically it's just bringing them home to themselves and like holding them accountable for showing up for themselves in a way that
you're present, probably.
Yeah.
Just being present. And I think, we get lost in the...
I got so lost on a tangent.
No, you're
like,
okay.
What am I even talking about?
That's the whole point of a podcast. We love it. I think, it's awesome because it brings you back to like just being present with yourself and what you actually want, instead of maybe these goals and ideologies that...
I remembered what I was saying.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That your parents maybe set out for you, or that society is expecting upon you.
You know, in the breakthrough breathwork session, so there's the functional breathing about making them feel safe, but then the breakthrough sessions, it's like taking you back to moments where you didn't know you needed to grieve. So, you know, like you didn't know that someone calling you a certain name or your mum or your dad doing something to you when you were 10 or 15, you'd held on to until you do this session and you're laying down and you're breathing and all of a sudden your mind is taking you back to that moment and then tears come up or then laughter comes up or whatever it might be, and then you finish it at the end and people are like, I came in with the intention to do this or grieve this, but I went back to when I was 10 or I went back to when I was 11 or 15 or whatever, and I had this whole different experience. And, you know, that's just letting them shed the things that are holding them at a lower frequency. So that's like the breakthrough side of it. Anyway, there's so many sides of
that is amazing. It's amazing how like the mind can do that after like a breathwork session. I think it's so cool. So you've left home or left the country at 17?
Yeah.
What was that all like?
No, so left the country at 18, left home at 17.
Oh, what was that like?
I moved in with my ex's family, and he has the most beautiful family. And they felt so safe, and I had the most, I started dating him when I was 13, and we broke up when I was 18. And I moved in with them when I was 17, and their family was normal. They had like the mum and dad loved each other. All the kids like were lived at home. There was no drama. Like family Christmases were like beautiful. Like and I was like, oh, this is a normal family. I love this. So I like loved living with them from 17 to 18. And then, so it was beautiful. Like I had a beautiful leaving home experience. I was very lucky. I know a lot of people when they leave home before they're 18, it's not so nice. But my family and I didn't really speak, but I had a beautiful place to be, and I was very safe.
Well, what was the thought process like in terms of, I don't agree with like the normal family. Like I empathize. Oh, sympathize. Sorry, not empathize. I sympathize with it because I'm very fortunate that like my whole family's all together. Like grandparents live here, obviously, and then parents at the front. So I haven't experienced that. But can you talk to us a bit about that if you're comfortable? Like your parents and how that sort of affected you, and maybe how breathwork sort of came into the picture and solved all that.
So for me, like growing up, there was always dramas. Like for Christmas, it was like dad would want to have us only because dad was affecting mum by having us in the like it was just my parents are so beautiful, and they were just going through their own journeys, but they were very they were doing their best, but in reflection, they could have probably done a little bit better in the sense that they just were both very stuck in what was happening for them rather than what was happening for us. And it's really interesting because the way that, like, I've got 7 siblings, but I have one full sister, and my full sister is the polar opposite of me. And she's probably going to hate that I'm talking about this, but I'm going to talk about it. So I was like the most dramatic, like I used to self-harm a lot. Started smoking. I smoked weed for the first time when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15. Like I did everything the wrong way. I was the devil child, right? Like the proper devil child. And I was so loud and so extravagant, and then moved out of home. And my little sister, and like I came by 25, like my mum always said to me, by 25, you're going to be great. And I did. I literally did my first breathwork session a week after I turned 25. And that's when this journey started. And mum and dad stopped losing sleep over me. But then my little sister was the opposite. My little sister suppressed everything. And she finished school, got the best grades, did the Europe trip, bought the car, like saved for the house, like got engaged now, about to get married. But see, what's interesting about her is we both had the same trauma growing up. We both had the same parents. We both had to deal with the same things. She was a little bit younger than me. And she was perfect. And she still is perfect, don't get me wrong. But everything in her life was like perfect until all of a sudden now she has endometriosis. And her body is like screaming at her, and she's like quite unwell in that sense. So like my theory behind that is she watched me be so loud and extravagant with the way that my parents brought us up and whatever happened with all of that. And then I was like this dramatic child, and then she's gone and internalized everything, and now her body is screaming back at her. So now she's the one who's on the phone to mum all the time having like moments because she's in so much pain and there's so much going on for her. I really should have asked her before I talk about this on a podcast, but anywho, but like she's the one who's like, it's like reversed, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that is because she suppressed everything, because she watched how mum and dad spoke about me and how the trauma I put my mum and dad through leaving and, being the naughty rat bag. So I think she's internalized everything, whereas I got everything out and now I'm thriving. And I think now she's needing to realize that there's a lot of work to do and there's a lot of unpacking, and maybe she was a little bit more affected by what happened and the way that our parents were.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's funny how everything's so intertwined in that way, and how siblings maybe might rub off on to your behaviors and maybe how your parents are speaking about you as well. Like I have a younger brother as well, and I don't know. I haven't had the chance to sit down and sort of like analyze all of it, but it's amazing that you've been able to do that. And shout out to your sister.
Yeah, shout Kate.
Yeah.
We love you. No, but she, it's been interesting for me in this, because obviously like endometriosis is autoimmune and no one can tell you what autoimmune is or isn't, right? Like no one knows why you're suffering from endo or why you're suffering from fibromyalgia or all these things. But I mean, you know what happens when your body stays in a stress response. You know what I mean? And you know that when you're in your sympathetic nervous system, your body's not digesting food, your body's not worrying about reproducing, like, and doing all those things because your body thinks that there's a tiger behind you. So like your nervous system doesn't know that you're safe because you're so like this because of whatever it is that's happening for you externally. So when you sit in that state for a really long time, I don't know what happens to your body, but no one knows how autoimmune comes about. But there is a certain kind of person, I believe, who gets autoimmune. That's a really controversial thing to say, but like there's a certain kind of energy to someone who has.
Yes, no, I see where you're going with that.
And it's, I believe it's because they haven't felt safe in their body, so their body has started to shut down. You know.
Yeah. What was your mental health like prior? I know you've like posted really candidly on your own Instagram about like your like maybe fitness journey or just like how you're feeling about yourself. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
So from I can remember I used to self-harm, like from as early as, I don't remember the first time I did it, but up until the last time I did it was after I turned 18, because I have a tattoo on my wrist with, I was 19 when I last self-harmed. And that was my coping mechanism. But it was because I felt so many things inside me that I could control the pain that I was feeling when I hurt myself. So that's why I did it, because it was like, okay, cool. You don't have any control over how you feel, but you can control the physical pain that you put yourself through. So I used to self-harm. So I wasn't very happy. And I never I was very unhappy, and I was very just like depressed all the time. But in saying that now in reflection, I totally understand why all that was, because of everything that I was doing for myself and everything that happened to me, and I never felt safe, right? And so, yeah, my mental health was terrible. And then to be fair, it got noticeably better. I had a big nervous breakdown moment when I was about 4.5 years ago now, and I had to go home to Byron and do about 6 or 7 weeks of psych, and I went every 5 days a week for 6 weeks. I saw the most wonderful psychologist that I've ever experienced in my life. And I unpacked the mental side of everything, and I was healed, I was like, all better. And I was noticeably better. Like I did like change the way I was after that 7-week trip home. And then I came back to Melbourne, and the breathwork came because I'd unpacked the mental. Like the psychologist helped me unpack the mental side of it. But like I said, energy and motion, emotions, like all that kind of stuff, you hold on to things, right? So I'd understood why I was the way that I was, but I hadn't held space for myself to grieve why I was like that. So for me, I struggled with my mental health up until I was 25, up until 2 years ago.
Was that because of just family, or do you feel like the schooling environment contributed to that as well, because you were like never a learner and maybe people would look down on that?
I think that it was predominantly family.
Family, yeah.
I think it was predominantly like I was the lame kid at school, like I was the dork, but I feel like in school, if you're the dork, you're way cooler when you grow up. Because like you haven't had your moment yet. Like you're lame in school. You got to like really learn how to just survive. And then when you come out of school, it's like that's when you're gonna find your time when you come out of school, and like you step into yourself. Because like all the people who I used to idolize in school, I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing now? Like you never left our hometown. What?
No,
not that that's bad, but you know what I mean. Like
I get what you mean. There's like no growth.
Yeah.
And it's like you peaked in high school. Yeah.
That was as good as it gets. Yep. Whereas for me, it was really shit in high school, but that was fine. It was definitely family for me. It was definitely the growing up with parents who were a little bit lost. And to be fair, like my mum is like my best friend, and we're attached at the hip as often as we can be, and we speak constantly. But she has completely changed now, and she puts her hand up and she's like, I could have done better. And she talks about it all the time. And I pre-warned her when I went on that. I was like, I'm going to go on a podcast and I'm probably going to talk about it. And I didn't on that episode, but I've told her that when I have my own podcast one day, I'm probably going to talk about it. And she's like, I'll get on there and talk to you about it. She's like,
I love that so much. Like that's such a mature relationship to have with your mum.
Whereas my dad's like still, no, I'm this, I'm that. You don't understand how I had to deal with it. Like I got it so much worse than you did. So, because his upbringing, his dad was in war. So of course he had it worse than I had it, because his dad was literally like, fighting. So traumatized. Yeah. And then like there's the fact that, Papa was in war, and then Dad copped the repercussions of that. But then the ancestral trauma of Papa's cortisol levels being so high, then Dad's cortisol levels being so high, you know what I mean? Like just naturally. And then obviously it's come down, like generational trauma as well is like maybe even more like as intense as the physical trauma that your parents put on you growing up.
Yeah.
As well.
What sparked your move to London? were you trying to find yourself? And
no, also my
I'm gonna
ex
change the cameras as well.
Yeah. So my ex and I traveled Europe from 18 to 19, and then when I turned 19, we traveled Europe from 18 to just before I turned 19. Then I had my 19th birthday. I was living in Dubai. I lived in Dubai for a year, and then I moved to London because Dubai, one of my sisters lived in Dubai, so I moved over there and lived with her. And then I moved to London because I had another sister in London, and I just thought I wasn't ready to go home to Australia, but I didn't want to stay in Dubai any longer. So I decided to move to London.
Okay.
So it was just like I wasn't ready to go home yet.
Yeah, okay.
And I had my sister there, so it was like, just spent a year with one sister in Dubai. I thought, why not do another year with another sister in London?
So wholesome.
Yeah, nice.
That's so cute. All right, I want to get into like why breathwork, and I think a lot of the listeners, particularly men.
Yeah, I love this. Like we're just talking about.
We're literally just talking. Yeah. Oh no, that's fine. I love your life story, and I think it's so amazing to see like where you've come from to like now, and like you're literally so happy, literally just smiling all the time, which is so awesome. And you use delicious. I don't know many people that use the word delicious in their like everyday vocabulary.
Do you know so many people say that, and so many people have started using delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
But life is delicious.
Yes.
Like life is literally delicious.
No, I love that so much. Like delicious.
Yeah, it's delish.
Yeah,
love literally
amazing. So I think there's like this stigma around like wellness, well-being, and like breathwork and yoga, particularly from the men's perspective and those sorts of things. I was just talking to you about the TikTok that I saw on my feed come up, and it was of this man who obviously had like lots of pent-up trauma or something going on in his life, and he had just done breathwork and was like screaming, and that was the clip on TikTok. I was just scrolling through the comments, and a lot of them was just horrible, just bashing him and saying like, oh, just grow up. Like, why is he screaming for? Like, oh, breathwork's like, surely breathwork doesn't do that, and those sorts of things. Talk to us a bit about breathwork. Like, what are you actually doing?
So, like I said before, there's so many different ways to breathe. Like, there's ways that you can breathe that is going to improve your CO2 levels in your body, which is going to have you breathing more functionally. So, like, you're going to be taking less breaths per minute, and but then there's also the breath work where you would have seen the trauma release, and that is where you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. So the functional stuff is predominantly nose breathing, because our noses are made for breathing and our mouths aren't. But then this magical thing happens when you do mouth breathe with intention, and you kind of go into a sympathetic state, which is your fight or flight state. And you know that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? So that's coming from the word, like hermetic stress is that saying. So it's like putting your body under a controlled state of stress where you're telling yourself that you're safe and you're like controlling your stress response, and it's helping you grow, right? So when you're mouth breathing, you're putting yourself into that state. Same like when you get into an ice bath and your body goes, oh my fucking God, what's happening? And you sit in it, you're having your stress response, but you're relaxing into it and you're telling your body you're good and you're safe, right? And that's helping you grow. Same with breath work, mouth breathing. And again, this is only my opinion, but this is what I believe. So when you're, the crying, the screaming and the sweating and the release side of it comes from putting yourself into a state of stress, I guess, but just kind of holding space. And it's often a lyrical journey. It's often the music that is the trigger for the emotional release in a breathwork session, because you just get so lost. You're just listening to the lyrics, and then, they say one thing in the lyric, and that just sends you and takes you back to a moment where, like you do, like I've gone back to moments in breathwork where I've had like screaming moments when a lyric has reminded me of some time when I was younger, when I didn't feel safe to just tell someone to just fuck off, and I didn't have that in me. And then all of a sudden that lyric has taken me physically back to that moment, because you're just holding space for your body to just shift what's in your energy field, right?
There could honestly be a podcast on music.
Yeah.
And like the effect on the body and the mind.
Yeah. I was listening to a song the other day that gave me goosebumps and made me start crying, and I was like, oh my gosh. But then, some people don't feel that.
Exactly. So
some people don't feel music in their body. Some people don't have that visceral reaction to music. Yeah. Because when I call people and I say, hey, send me some songs for our one-on-one, they go, I don't have any songs. I don't have Spotify. I don't have Apple Music. Like I just listen to the radio. And I'm like, what? You don't have music playing 24/7?
Yeah.
But like
there's so much research on like what lyrics can do to you, what maybe the beat or pace of the song can do to you. And I'd love to get like a musical, I don't know, like analyst or someone that is in that field to just talk about it, because I think it's so interesting how music can have such an immense impact on like your thought processes. Because like the song that you listened to that made you cry might, I don't know, make someone super happy.
Yeah. Oh, no, all the ones that make me cry, like real, like to build a home.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I don't know that one. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. But no, you're right though. There's like one of my girlfriends, one of my sad songs is her like everything song. She's like, that's my sad song, that's my happy song, that's my this song, that's my ex's, like that's my everything song.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And she's like, whatever I tap into when I'm listening to it is what happens. But that's what happens when people with breath work. I mean, you can have an emotional release without music, but from what I've found, at least 90% of the people who have the emotional release, it is invoked by the song or the lyric or the moment that their body has taken them to. And you cry about it and, you know, you grieve it. But that's the beauty of it. Like you just hold space for your body to go back to those moments like that person would have done in that TikTok. And he's not faking that. You literally can't fake that. Like and letting it out is shifting and like you physically feel lighter. And then when you feel lighter and you don't have all this density in your body, you don't have dis-ease, right? Like there's no dis-ease in your body, and then that's disease.
Oh.
I mean, maybe it's just like a play on words. Maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe it's not. But like once you start just like holding space for yourself to just like go and feel and like go there and do it, and it shifts everything and you become lighter. I was never this happy person. I was like the most energy draining vampire who just wanted to complain and just like all that kind of stuff and just like stay at that victim mindset, because that was I could predict that. I could predict the fact that I was going to feel like a victim tomorrow, and I was going to, you know, call my best friend and complain and do all this kind of shit, because we want to be able to predict what our outcome is, right? And we like predicting discomfort. Like we like predicting that low vibration rather than stepping into the unknown of what changing something might be. Like the reason you cry and scream in breathwork is because you're just holding space for yourself to release what you haven't held space for. But like when you don't release that, it comes up in so many other ways, physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And that keeps you at a low vibration.
Yeah, I feel like that alone is a message to, I don't know, maybe reconsider like the stigma or the stereotype that you hold against maybe breathwork or...
And like breathing is our life force. You can go days without food, days without water, days without sleep. You literally can't go. I mean, some people can go like 10 minutes without breathing if they get themselves there, like prepare themselves. But as like a society, you can't go a minute without your breath, but it's the last thing you look at when anything else falls out of alignment. It's like you're so worried about your steps and your calories and your fat intake and all this other shit. And it's like, none of that matters. Like you actually can go so much time without even worrying about all those things. You actually can't go a minute without breathing, but you think that that's all it is. You think that it's just this part of your body that just happens. Like
that perspective is awesome. Yeah,
it's our life force.
I mean, you never think of it. Yeah, you're so right. Like you never think of like when things are going wrong, it's like, oh, maybe I'm breathing a certain way. Yeah.
Or like the people who, you know, have like me, this was me. I'm not even going to say the people. When I used to have chronic anxiety and I was so depressed, I didn't look at how I was breathing. I would go to the doctor and I would wait for the doctor to give me a new script for something that was going to up what I was already taking, that was going to make me feel normal. And then like my first ever person that I ran through a breathwork session, who's now like becoming quite a well-known breathwork facilitator in Melbourne, and she's like has her own breathwork studio with her partner and they have ice baths and all that. She was the first woman I ever ran through a one-on-one breathwork session. She had been on a lot of things to stabilize her anxiety and her mood and her depression. When I laid her down for the first time, she could only breathe into her chest. So only this part of her body moved when she took a breath in. She'd been going to the doctor for like however many years, getting more and more of everything that she was on, and not one fucking doctor looked at where her breath was going. Of course her body felt like she was like under attack constantly. She wasn't breathing into her belly. And so I taught her how to breathe into her belly, and like showed her the difference between like belly and chest breathing and then nose and mouth breathing and all that kind of stuff. She doesn't take anything now. She has the totally different energy. She's now a breathwork facilitator. It completely changed her life as well.
Well, it's all man-made as well. Those like medications and everything. Yeah. It's just toxic, and it goes back to like the human body. Like you're self-sustainable. Yeah.
And not only is it toxic, but what it's doing is it's actually just pumping your body with something that we already make. So your body already makes the things that you're putting into it, right? Because that's how it like works. Is it like in like, you know, you're putting in more of what you already have, but you know, cold showers, you're pumping your body, ice baths, cold showers, you're pumping your body filled with almost the same things that you're doing when you take an anti-anxiety tablet. Maybe not exactly an anti-anxiety tablet, but like those mood stabilizers, you can pump your body filled with the same chemicals if you get into an ice bath. But like that's so much harder than taking a pill, and our society's primed for just like easy, you know? But like, yeah.
No, it lights me up that you're so passionate about it, and I think a lot of people need to hear about it.
Yeah.
My question is, And for the listeners as well who are probably wondering, like, what the fuck is chest breathing? What is belly breathing? What is nose breathing? What is mouth breathing? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yep. So if you look at I don't know, some medical textbook and you look at what our mouths are supposed to do, it doesn't ever say once they're made for breathing. Not once, ever. No one will ever tell you that your mouth is made for breathing. Yeah. Your mouth is there to, when you're under high metabolic demand, we move to mouth breathing because we think we can get more air in. And now, but basically our mouths aren't made for breathing. Okay. Our mouths do not, when you breathe in and out of your nose, like this is the size of your nasal cavity underneath. Like if you put your hand up against there, that is.
Ella's holding up a fist.
Oh, yeah, I'm holding up a fist.
Yes.
I'm holding my fist like up to my nose. And if you put it up and you put that behind into your skull, your fist is roughly the size of your nasal cavity. Wow. So when you breathe in through your nose, there's all these little hairs in your nose that as the air comes in, it primes it to the right heat that your body wants it. It makes sure that you control the amount of air that comes in so you're not over breathing. It mixes it with a gas called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, which helps the chemical exchange between the hemoglobin and like the oxygen and the CO2. So it's like helping your body function better. And basically your nose is made for breathing. And there's all these magical things in there that facilitate your body functioning in the most optimal way that it can when you breathe through your nose.
Whereas the mouth is
made for eating, kissing, and talking.
Wow. That is...
And other things, but like that's what I'm going to say.
And to think that Ella dropped out at 17. Like you just sound so well educated around it. And
no,
I think that's like the message as well.
To think that the doctors, that like these people who are chronic mouth breathers who only go into like, you know, they're chronic mouth breathers, they only breathe into their chest. And there's doctors who were like putting on this, like Western medicine is beautiful. There's a time and a place for it. We rely so much on Western medicine. Like Western medicine is the most wonderful thing in the world. Car crashes, like, you know, like surgeries, all these kind of things. Like, but as a society, it's so easy for us to go and be like, this is what I need, 15-minute appointment. That doctor doesn't know you in 15 minutes. That doctor has no fucking idea what's going on for you. That doctor's putting like a stereotype in front of your symptoms and looking at the one thing and then just giving you something because they're probably being paid to prescribe that to you as well.
It's a $60 session.
Exactly. Like it's so like these doctors are coming in and you're mouth breathing and you're breathing into your chest and the doctor's going, okay, I have a degree. I'm a doctor. I'm amazing. Here's this thing. But it's like, no, this person just doesn't feel safe in their body. This person doesn't know how to use their body properly. And you're telling them in a 15-minute appointment, like that's a doctor who we idolize, but they don't even know. And you know, like everyone's doing the best they can with the knowledge they have. They're not taught about it. It doesn't get talked about. Like Wim Hof, for example, perfect example of it. Wim Hof went to these scientists, and I don't know the exact story, but you need to like look into this. Wim Hof went to this group of scientists and was like, I can control my innate immune response. Like I can control my autonomic nervous system. They were like, no, you can't. And he's like, no, I can. And our autonomic nervous system is called our autonomic nervous system because it's automatic and we have no conscious control over it, right? So Wim has gone in and said, you can inject me with E. coli and I can fight it off. And they're like, nah, he did it. With his breath, he controlled his innate immune response, so his natural immune response to being injected with E. coli by just controlling his breath, okay, and his mindset. They said to him, you're superhuman, no one else can do this. He said, no, everyone can do this, they just don't know they can do this. They went and got test studies. He took, I don't know exactly what number, but he took a certain amount of them to his camp and trained them. They gave him 3 weeks. He did it in like 10 days or 8 days or something like that. And the other test study just rocked up on the day. They both got injected with E. coli. Every single person that Wim trained controlled their innate immune response.
Incredible.
Every single person that didn't have. And the doctors all looked at him and said, for us to admit that this is true, we have to rewrite every book in this room. And of course that's not going to happen because that's giving people the power and empowering people. And unfortunately, as a society, the people who are in charge don't want us to be empowered and don't want us to be like, you know, so they're not going to rewrite all the textbooks and change the narrative because this narrative that currently goes is training people to like keeping people in a low vibration. Anyway, that's my crazy opinion.
Incredible.
But yeah.
A lot to digest there, but like so incredible.
Look at the rants I'm going on.
No, but I think people need to hear this and it's like, it's suppressed.
Yeah.
Like they won't rewrite. And like science is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And the amount of research that goes into it is like not to discredit or anything. Like obviously they're working really hard in the backgrounds and like countless nights, days spent on their research. But yeah.
But then another thing, it's like there's Newtonian physics, right? And we teach Newtonian physics. And my brother-in-law, stepbrother, my stepsister's husband is a physicist. And I went home when I first started learning about Joe Dispenza and like quantum entanglement and like the quantum universe. And I was like, what about quantum physics? And he's like, oh, we don't talk about that. And I was like, but quantum physics has proven that Newtonian physics is wrong, yet you're a physicist who has only learnt about Newtonian physics. So why the fuck? What? Like, we're literally choosing not to talk about the fact that magic is real and that quantum physics exists, and we're still teaching Newtonian. Like it doesn't make sense. And people are like putting people who go and get the degrees on these pedestals, but it's like the people who are getting the degrees aren't even getting all of the information because the structure at the top here is choosing not to, you know, like, anyway, there we go. That's my little, I'll stop. Anyway.
Oh, I lost my train of thought too. Far out. That's annoying. Let's get into chest breathing as well, and why that isn't necessarily the best thing. And I'll think of what I had to say.
When we're born as perfect breathers. Like the majority of babies are born as perfect breathers. You'll notice that they only use their noses to breathe. Their bellies move when they breathe in. But then when we grow up and we're put in a school chair and we're told to sit down for however many hours a day, we sit and we like stay in these positions, right? And we start to naturally move our breath into our chest.
True.
And so when we breathe into our chest, all of the gas the exchange is happening at the base of the lungs. But we can't get the air to the base of the lungs when we just breathe into our chest, right? So as a society, the majority of us start just breathing into our chest, and that's the only part of our bodies that move. And with time, that just becomes our norm. And like this morning, when I was facilitating that session with you guys, so many of the women there were chest breathing, and I was saying, breathe deep, and they were moving their chest, and their chest was moving when they were breathing in, and then their bellies were moving out when they were breathing out. And it's just like reversed because that's how they've taught themselves to breathe. But they probably all have, you know, like the whole, what I was saying before with like my sister being in her sympathetic nervous system and, you know, like always being on alert because she didn't feel safe to feel what she needed to feel because of the way that she was. So like their nervous systems are probably also maybe causing them to feel a bit of anxiety, or maybe they have digestive issues because they're breathing into their chest and the gas exchange isn't happening, so their bodies aren't functioning the way they should be. So they're staying in their sympathetic nervous system a little bit more because they don't feel safe, right? So then other things are manifesting in their body.
Yeah, and it just offsets.
Yeah. So and it feels weird. And people who, if you take a deep breath in and your chest moves, and I say to you, okay, start breathing into your belly, you're not going to be able to belly breathe until you intentionally do it for like at least 5 days. Like it's going to feel so unnatural for you because it's not what you do. So, and then a lot of people just give up and they go, oh no, I just breathe like this, I'm fine. And then they get on with it because like we don't want to sit with ourselves and we don't want to like do hard things, right? And if it's not giving you that instant, like the feeling you get after a run or the feeling you get after a weight session, you know, because you have to sit and be like consistent with yourself with moving your breath into your belly, people give up.
Yeah, I found my train of thought. It's that convenience aspect. Yeah. And that's probably why we keep leaning into like the physics that we were, what was it called? Newtonian.
Yeah. Do you mean like...
Yeah.
So like, Newtonian is one we talk that is like pushed, and quantum is the one that's like, okay, that's magic. Yeah, okay, we don't talk about that.
And I think it's, that convenience aspect of like, well, this is what we've been doing. Like, why would we deviate from it? It's a bit too hard to move from. And I think it relates to that breath as well. It's like, it's hard to just sit there with your breath and be at ease with it instead of like maybe going for a run and feeling that like instant high, or like going on TikTok, scrolling it and getting instant dopamine.
Yeah, well, we're primed for distraction. We're primed. We're primed to that's as a society. That's literally why we're so fucking unhappy and all of this, because we're just so primed to just next, and it's all instant. Like with everything, like even like everything that we do in our life now is instant. We don't have to work for anything anymore. And it's like we wonder why as a society we're getting like sicker, fucking like fatter and just more depressed. It's like you don't have to do anything hard. You can go through your whole entire life without ever having to feel uncomfortable. But, you know, like, anyway.
Talk to us about the breath boss. Where does it come from? Not the name. Like how, from when you discovered breathwork to now, what's that journey been like?
So it's been the most beautiful journey ever, because I just get to do the coolest things. But I basically never thought that I would do, when I first did my first breathwork session, I still then didn't want to be like a breath coach. I just found it so healing. So I spent the whole of 2020 just unlearning everything I'd learned and like just sitting in myself and just like doing all the hard, like doing the breath work and doing the ice baths and all that kind of stuff. So I had my own journey with breathing and discovering all the different elements of it and like reading and like learning about my body and like about energy and about magic and about quantum physics and about manifesting and all of these things that are just like hoo-ha, that people just go, oh no, that's hoo-ha. You're a hippie. So I started learning about all that. And then at the end of 2020, I was like, you know what, I'm going to become in the middle of 2021, I was like, I'm going to like look into doing this just so I can learn more about it. And so I did my first course, and I still had the most profound moments ever in that. And then from that, I was like, I actually started a community with one of my friends. And we started like a cold water therapy and community. And then I started just doing breath work before the catch-ups to do ocean swims. And then that started growing and growing. And then all of a sudden I was facilitating breath work for like 300 people on a beach on a Sunday. And that just kind of gave me the name, the Breath Boss. And even though no one actually knew that I'd only been doing it for like 2 months, I got put in front of so many people at a time that it just kind of fast-tracked everything. And yeah, then I did my first class a year ago. My first paid class was actually a year ago in 19 days. And but yeah, getting in front of a community really fast-tracked the Breath Boss becoming the Breath Boss, because I guess I just got to hold space for so many people to have a moment. And out of maybe, you know, the 300 people that would rock up, maybe 10 people were like, hold on, that just changed my life. What is this? And then they would lean into it and tell one person. And then like today, it was so surreal being there, everyone being like, I heard about you here, I heard about you there, and now you're here. And I was like,
I'm everywhere.
Yeah,
like, exactly.
But yeah, the Breath Boss evolved by first my own journey for the first year. And then the second year, I just decided to dabble in learning more about it. And I didn't think I'd do much with it, to be honest with you. And then I just started facilitating before the beach swims that I was running. And then the breath element became bigger. And then it's just, we're in the age of like all of this magic is coming forward now. Like the voices of the people in our generation and the social media and like the good side of social media, it's all becoming louder and louder. And like we're stepping into the age of wellness and the age of like empowering people and coming home to yourself and all that kind of stuff. So I guess like I just kind of put myself in front of a whole bunch of people at the start, and the Breath Boss evolved.
Yeah. Well, you sound super confident, and I can imagine, did you feel like any imposter syndrome to begin with?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah. Because obviously you've grown up with like the trauma and everything, and then you've just suddenly had this revelation with breath work, and then now you're facilitating like 300 people on a Saturday at Elwood.
So now I don't have like, when I first started, for the first like, I'm going to say 10 months of doing classes where people were paying me, I would be shaking and I would have the driest mouth and I wouldn't be able to talk properly, and I would be like, oh my God, are these people serious? Like, do they know that because I also lost 10 kilos in 2020. And so like not only have I had like a mental glow up, but like I used to be nearly 100 kilos. So like if anyone who knows what it feels like to lose weight, you still see yourself as that person, right? Like you still see yourself as, you look in the mirror and you see, even if you're 60 kilos, you see a 98 kilo girl staring back at you, because that's your reality, right? So not only were these people coming to the beach for me to run them through breath work, but I'm up there being like, I'm this like sad, really chunky girl who's like, why are you all here? And like, so imposter syndrome was hectic. And for the first like 10 months of facilitating classes where people were paying me, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. Who even am I? Like, and it's all just in my head, but it's getting easier to.
Well, yeah. How have you started dealing with it, or like how have you dealt with it in the past? Because I can imagine you've like seen the amount of people that you, like people's lives that you've changed. Is that like what gives you the fulfillment and like validation sort of thing?
At the start of last year, I started doing mirror work, and I started talking to myself in the mirror and telling myself, I started doing like affirmations in the mirror, but I don't mean affirmations like you are worthy, you are this, you are that. I just would like stand in the mirror and I would like look at myself and I would try and really see myself, which I think a lot of people probably don't do. And if you do see yourself, you tell yourself shit things about yourself, or you critique yourself, right? Whereas I would start standing in the mirror because a friend of mine suggested it, because my insecurities were getting so hectic when I would drink. I gave up drinking for a while, but I would drink and I would get so insecure, and just like, you would feel it. Like I was never like, oh, some people would probably say I was a hot mess, but like I was never like terrible, but I was pretty insecure. And then my friend was like, do mirror work. So I tried it, and that is what's helped me step into who I am rather than feel so nervous and shake at the start. I would just like stand in front of the mirror and tell myself nice things about myself. And I was lying to myself for the first 6 months. I was stand in front of the mirror and be like, you're beautiful. And I'd be like, oh, fuck, you don't even believe that. But now I'm like, you're so gorgy. Look at you go.
You are delicious.
Like, you are fucking delicious.
Yes.
So that has helped me a lot. Staring at myself in the mirror, feeling so fucking uncomfortable about it for the first like 6 months, and then slowly I'd be like, oh, you do look cute today, babe. I'm like, you're killing it today. And then like I'd just get better and I'd feel myself more, and like I feel comfortable in my skin now.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I can imagine like listeners might be thinking like, oh, like staring at myself in the mirror, like who the fuck would want to do that? Like it's so scary and daunting, and a lot of these things sound scary and daunting, or like you said, hippie. But I think we really need to just remove the stigma surrounding it. Just try different things, try new things. If it doesn't work, then you can just say, oh, look, I've done it. And then I can move on and find something else that works for me.
Yeah, and like a big thing that I always come back to saying to people, it's like you can't wake up and do the same thing every day and expect yourself to feel better. And you can't keep relying on other people. No one else is going to like do any of this for you. And if you want to change the way that you show up in the world, you have to change how you show up. Like you have to actually sit in it and do the uncomfortable things and do the hard stuff, because no one else can do that part for you, and that's the part that's going to take you from A to B, because you've obviously been going from A to B the way you are, with whatever you're doing, and it's obviously not working, so you have to go and get uncomfy, whether that's like staring at yourself in the mirror, or whether that's getting into an ice bath, or turning the shower cold, or doing a breathwork session, or, like running a little bit faster on the tread, like whatever it might be, you have to push yourself a little bit and sit in that controlled, uncomfortable feeling for you to be able to grow. Because otherwise you don't grow. You're not going to create new neural pathways by just doing the same fucking shit every day. You have to go and do something different if you want different.
That's my clip. That's the highlight. Oh, no, this chat's been awesome. Talk to us a bit about your classes. So you've got 3 different kinds, is that right?
So at the moment there's 3. So I'm about to open a breath studio with my business partner Nathan. So everything's going to change in about a month. But at the moment there is 3 classes. I think
we'll be out by then. It'll
Amazing.
be good.
Okay, so
it'll be like perfect timing.
So we're gonna do different classes. So there's going to be a connection class, which is going to be the eye gazing, which makes people feel so uncomfortable, but it's really, really beautiful to just hold space for a stranger to feel seen, and like a lot of emotions can come up during that, because especially after the last 2 years, like people don't feel seen. People don't, you go your whole day without making eye contact with anyone some days. And like it's anyway, there's a connection, because there's going to be a connection class, which is going to start with the eye gazing and then into the kind of maybe an uncomfortable question with a stranger, and then into the breath element of it. And there'll be kind of like structure behind the journey where it is kind of taking you through different discomforts to feel more connected to yourself. And then there will be LSD, which is light, slow, deep. And that will just be no breath holds, nothing crazy. That will just be for people who do struggle with the breath holds, or for people who are in that really high state of anxiety. We don't want to put them through any more stress, because if they come into a class that's, going to put them into more of a stress response, they're going to scare themselves and never come back to it. So light, slow, LSD or light, slow, deep will be.
I love that name.
Yeah, such a good name. It will be just very delicious in the sense that it will just be slow and just like feeling safe with breathing and feeling safe being in your body, and then there will be, I don't know the other 2 that we're exactly going to put down, but it will be some sort of release class, which will be predominantly mouth breathing and kind of like what I've spoken about with the breakthrough, but you will get the breath hold, so you will be able to like come back to yourself, and it will be not as intense as the breakthrough session, but definitely structured more around a release style session. And then there'll be rejuvenate, which will be all nose breathing with the breath holds, and just like a normal class, like what we did today, like rejuvenate. So you feel like, you feel
rejuvenated,
rejuvenated and like empowered and just like full at the end.
Yes.
And then there's the breakthrough, which is just like, I don't know what it will be for everyone, but it's always going to be like the more intense version, because it really is tapping into firstly, it's predominantly one-on-one. So you don't get you don't get to run away anywhere, because I'm there the whole time. But then also it is kind of taking you to the depths of yourself to like break through whatever it is that's holding you there.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's all so exciting.
Gosh, it's all coming into fruition.
It is.
Ella, your story's been so inspiring in terms of like from where you've come from, and technically, or not technically, like as a society, we probably would have looked down at your story, to be honest, like dropping out of school at 17 and then just going on this wild, like not even soul searching. You were just like, I just want to leave the country and just like do something else. And then you've come back and discovered something that you love, and you're just turning it into this worldwide, or maybe nationwide and then worldwide revelation. thank you so much for your time. Like, it's just been awesome listening to your story. Like, do you have anything else to say or leave out there for those that might be, I don't know, going through similar times or struggling with something in their life and maybe don't really see light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, firstly, if you've listened to this episode and you're just overwhelmed by how much we've just gone on rants and how overwhelming I can be, message me if there's anything that has like ignited something inside you and you want to know more, but we didn't like fully touch on it, or I went on a rant for something else.
To get you on for round 2 or something.
Message me, or we'll do round 2. But yeah, no, I can't tell you how much understanding myself and like getting uncomfortable changed my life. And like I was the girl I had repulsive energy. No one ever was like commenting on my energy. I was so unhappy. I was so suppressed, and I never thought life could be this good. And life just keeps getting better. And if you're like stuck in whatever it is that you're stuck in, hating every day, let me tell you that there's such a better life on the other side of the discomfort that you need to step into in order to shed. So get uncomfortable, fam. Seek discomfort.
Incredible ending. Where can people find you? I'll have them in the show notes as well. But
so I'm the Breath Boss on Insta, as we've unpacked. And I will be at the Breath House in Windsor and on the beach on Saturday mornings for an ice bath.
Which beach?
Elwood Beach. Elwood Beach, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. You just have to sign the waiver in my bio or in the Breath House bio, and you don't have to pay. You just have to rock up with a smile and an open mind, and we're going to breathe you, get you into the ocean to have some gratitude, and then into an ice bath to really feel how cool life can be.
So exciting.
It's very exciting.
Be sure to follow at Life with Lamb podcast on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, and that.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully all the listeners really enjoyed that. I know I certainly did, but amazing. Catch you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Yay.